I stumbled upon this conservative YouTube channel that's releasing clips of them doing this journalistic, deep undercover approach to how easy it is to get HRT. And the comment sections are filled with comments like, "Thanks for revealing the hidden truth of what they're all trying to hide from us." And honestly guys, I have to admit something. I too am an undercover conservative trying to figure out what HRT does to the human body. In fact, I am so committed to this journalistic approach to uncovering what the woke left is so desperately trying to keep concealed from us that I will be going on the front lines and taking HRT every single day. In fact, I've been taking it for 2 full months now and plan to keep doing so for the foreseeable future. Believe me, this information was not easily accessible until this channel was the first to document how easy it is to get HRT. New trans people trying to learn how to be trans from more experienced trans people? There's not information or resources for that. That's hidden. You have to uncover that. Anyway, I've been crying a lot more. I enjoy it though, because there's never a moment in my life now where my throat gets tight and my eyes start to sting and I get frustrated at the fact that I can't. The tears just fall now. It's great. For example, I cried yesterday because I got really overwhelmed concerning the next Benedict murder. And I had a moment of sorrow for them personally, then felt bad for myself a little bit, and then felt bad for the grander community. But I was crying in my girlfriend's lap, and then after a few seconds, my alarm for taking estradiol went off. And I was like, fuck it. I'll take my estradiol extra hard tonight. Because truly, there is reason to be scared in this country. But the only thing worse than being terrified of being murdered or beaten over being trans or non-binary is then letting that fear win. Hello, hi. Is then letting the people who are willing to beat you scare you into not taking your pills that night. Is to scare you into not making the appointment that you want to make. And to scare you into not wanting to practice with makeup or a more masculine voice. So, take your HRT extra hard tonight. And if you have not yet made an appointment, but are considering it, press the buttons on your phone super hard. So I went to the Ren Fair today with my girlfriend and a few friends, and my goodness, nothing makes you want tits more than being surrounded by corsets. But speaking of, something interesting happened for the first time. I work at a liquor store, and at closing I have to reach up to turn the open sign off. And every day for the last 2-3 years, I've been doing this without incident. But today, as I reached up that high, I felt like a tightness in my nipple. I don't know, we're still looking at YouTube friendly. This definitely follows like advertiser guidelines, but they're different. They're definitely different than they used to be. And a few days ago, I was looking at myself naked in the mirror and I realized that my hips had like changed completely. I had been so focused on what was going on with my chest that I have been kind of neglecting everything below the waist. But when I looked in the mirror after getting out of the shower the other day, I was astounded. They looked great. I had a couple comments in my last few HRT videos and in my trans video saying something like, "You're not trans, you're a pervert. You're just attracted to yourself. You're attracted to the idea of being a woman." First off, not being a woman, still non-binary, just trans femme. Second, if you're not attracted to yourself, you're doing something wrong and you're missing out. Third, I was already sort of attracted to myself before I began taking HRT. If a clone of myself appeared right now, I would fuck myself without hesitation, and I think that's healthy. I will say there's this social phenomenon I've kind of noticed. Growing up, I quickly realized I was bisexual, but that was a much larger part of my identity when I was younger, like a teenager, and in my early 20s. Oh my god, I'm in a phase of my life where I say I was in my early 20s. But my last few major romantic partners have all been women, and while that doesn't nullify the fact that I'm bisexual, pansexual, in my daily life, I'm attracted to my girlfriend, foremost above all. Even though I haven't faced much biphobia in my life, I couldn't help but feel like I was starting to drift away from the community that I once was so deeply entrenched with. But now that I'm transitioning, I feel both closer and farther away from it than I ever have. Closer in that the last couple months have been me being the most queer of my life. That's been lovely, and I feel like I've been able to like feel more comfortable attaching myself to the queer community. So it feels comforting to like be sort of back in the warm embrace of like all the gays. But at the same time, there's this sort of loneliness and isolation that comes from being trans, because in the same way that it was kind of rude to ask someone 10, 15, 20 years ago, hey, are you gay? It has kind of become sort of just as rude now to ask someone, hey, are you trans? It feels like being trans is still this taboo thing. Most of the time I talk about transitioning, I am the one who brings it up. And at a certain point, it feels like I'm imposing so much personal information on like my favorite regulars at work. Now that I'm talking about all this, it feels like I'm complaining about nothing, but like I feel lonely. Here's what it is. When I came out as bisexual, it was so much easier for people to strike up conversations with me about it. Like if I said, hey, I'm bisexual, they'd be like, oh, like have you dated guys? Like, do you prefer men, women? What type of guys are your type? What type of girls are your type? But now when I tell people I'm trans, people who aren't trans are like, oh, okay, like what are your pronouns? Which is like nice, that's great, but it's very clinical. It feels like non-trans people are back to being, I don't want to say the wrong thing. Curiosity is good. I would love if people asked questions. Obviously not the, are you gonna keep your penis? Don't ask people about their genitals. Online, there's this theoretical community, and then when I get off my phone, which is healthy, and I'm looking at the real world, it feels much smaller, and it feels like all those people that were so numerous are now very distant. Like I want to strike up conversations with other trans people. I want trans people to strike up conversations with me, but like, you don't want to clock someone. You don't want to make someone feel insecure about how well they're passing. Open letter to all trans people. If you see me, feel free to say, hey, I know you're trans.
10 seconds later.
I don't know, what would I say if I talk to another trans person? Like, oh, what's your dosage? Oh, when did you find out? Oh, have you got Blaha yet? How do you pronounce Blaha? I think I'm pronouncing it wrong. Anyway, that's week 3. That's week 3 of month 3. And as has happened 2 times before, we are now at the end of another month of taking HRT. One major improvement has been that I stopped being so in my head about whether or not I can become erect. Not as a result of anything related directly to medication, but just to me getting out of my head and being less worried about, oh, am I masturbating enough times a week, you know? Because before I started taking hormones, there were times when I wouldn't become erect, and I wouldn't stress about it. I would just be like, alright, I'll use my fingers, or alright, I'll do something else instead of masturbating just because I'm bored. In a weird reverse way, erectile dysfunction only became an issue to me once I started taking feminizing hormones. But one of the last few times I masturbated, when I was still very in my head about like, oh, I have to become erect this many times a week, the orgasm I had was extremely painful. Just like a week or 2 after that, I was having sex with my girlfriend, and because I was just very present, it was like the hardest I had been, and the orgasm felt pleasant again. So I think it all just comes down to being able to relax and be in the mood. The 3 times a week of masturbating or having sex becomes a chore. It really does. It helps if you think, okay, I don't necessarily have to have sex or masturbate 3 times a week. I kind of just need to perform the function of morning wood on myself. Just become erect, maintain that for a minute, and honestly, I think that's fine. What else has been going on? My boobs have been slightly growing. I got my first bralette, I suppose, the other day, and it was like so euphoric and invigorating. Emotions, I've been feeling them more. I feel like I can filter out my sadness more efficiently. I've been crying at almost the slightest provocation. I've also noticed that on days where I can't wear makeup, or I can't like express myself the way I want to with my clothing, I feel a little bit down. Not enough to ruin my day, but in comparison to like the exuberance and the buoyant joy I experience when being able to present as feminine as I wanted to be that day, my days sort of feel like dull. Alright. Have a good one. I'm gonna see what's going on with my cat.